Hey guys, it's Trish here and I'm back with day 3 for my holiday series. Today I am starting out with the Lawn Fawn Rectangle Stitch dies. You guys know this is right now my go-to dies. I love these things. And I'm also using the Simon Says Stamp Layered Tree Die. This was a die that came out for their Christmas release last year. And I got it, but just never got around to using it with all the craziness that was going on at that time. So I'm excited to be using it this year. So to save time, I'm going to go ahead and lay out everything exactly where I want it. And that way I can just run this through my die cutting machine all at once and I don't have to do it in stages. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and attached the rectangle die with a little bit of Post-it tape, and I'm just laying out everywhere that I want the layered tree die inside of that frame. That way I can just run it all through the Cuttlebug at one time and not have to do it in stages. So here I am just taping it down. I'll run it through. And then you'll see here when I lift it out how cool this looks. And I've cut a second piece from the rectangle die that I need for a background. And then all the pieces that came out of cutting out the layered tree die, I've gone ahead and put aside because I am going to be using that on a different card. So I'll be showing you how instead of just throwing it away, you can use it to create a different card. So I really wanted the stem of the tree as well, but I didn't want it to cut through the bottom of that panel. So what I'm going to do is do a little bit of partial die cutting. I've attached my die to the panel with some tape, but then I'm only lining up the top plate to where I want it to go ahead and cut out of. So you'll see there, once I move the Cuttlebug, that there's this little notch at the bottom, and it didn't cut all the way to the bottom, to the edge of the panel, because I didn't line up that top plate all the way down. So what I'm going to do is just take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to cut straight across and pretty much finish off that cut. And now I have the stump of the tree and it's exactly how I want it to look. So I didn't necessarily need to cut out the back panel out of the rectangle die, but I figured since I had it out and to make sure that the cut matched perfectly, I'd just go ahead and cut another piece of paper from it. Then I'm taking my pencil and I'm just tracing along these lines. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be attaching sequins behind this front panel. And this idea came from one of my crafty friends, Nikki, over at Scrappin' Navy Wife. She does this on quite a few of her cards and I just admire it so much that I was like, you know what, I need to just take the plunge and try it out. Her cards always look fantastic when she does these. Mine doesn't quite look as good, but I do like the overall outcome of it. And it was something different, something I've never done before. I do shaker cards with the sequence, but I've never done this kind of like glue down and have the cutout on top of it, which I think is really neat looking. So this card is quite tedious. It does take quite some time. However, it turns out so nicely that I love it. I do. And despite how much time it took, and I will not bore you guys with it, it's just really cool. So I've just picked out some gold sequins. These are just random sequins from my stash. Some is from Michael, some are from other companies I've ordered offline that I don't even remember at this point. I don't even have them organized. I have those little craft mate lockable holders that you'll see later on. I don't even have them in there. I have them in little baggies. But anyways, so I'm using the multimedia matte glue and I'm just pretty much covering the whole spot that I've traced out with the color that I'd like. So for the star, I've gone ahead and done the gold. And every time I finish a small panel, I go ahead and take the top layer and put it over it to make sure that all the exposed cutout areas are definitely covered with sequins. So I did the star and then I moved to the stump, which only took 2 sequins because it's so small. But then I'm going to go take the top layer and I'm going to check and make sure that it's covered up. And then I started on the actual tree portion. I'm using actually 2 different shades of green, and the sequins are different colors and different sizes. So you'll see here, I line up the top layer, make sure all the areas are covered. There was one little spot in the corner that was still showing that didn't have a sequence, so I'm going ahead and putting a little bit more multimedia matte glue. I'm using the Tim Holtz I think it's like the pick tool. I love this thing, and so I'm just putting the layer on top, making sure all the areas are covered, and then once I see that it's covered, I'm going ahead and moving to the next layer of the tree. Like I mentioned, for the tree, I'm using 2 different colors. Here's the container that's for my sequins, but I only have 1 pack in there. I am just so behind on organizing them, but I'm using a darker shade of green and a lighter shade. I don't really know if the camera, or even when I photograph it, if it really picks it up, but the sequence is lighter and a larger size. So I've gone ahead and die cut the Merry Christmas from the Simon Says Stamp Deco Tree die, and I've cut it out 3 times out of red because I really want this to create a statement and almost look like a chipboard piece where it's got that depth to it. So once I've attached that with some multi-medium matte glue, I'm going to go ahead and put some foam tape along the edges of the back panel where I had this sequence attached. And you can see it looks like a jumbled mess, and that's totally okay because that top panel is going to cover it up with the die cut that we've created. So I'm just attaching foam tape all around, and I want to be sure that I'm not putting foam tape where there's some of the die cut out, because you don't want that to show through. So I'm going to go ahead and layer that top piece, make sure that none of the foam tape is shown, and then I'll peel it all back and attach it to the top, and then you get your finished look with the die cut and the sequence peeking through, which I think is a fantastic look and just so creative. And thank you, Nikki, for always doing this and giving me inspiration in trying it out. So once I've done that, you can see here's a close-up. Like I said, the camera doesn't really pick up that two-tone of the green, but it is a nice combination. So once I've done that, I'm kind of deciding whether I want it to go along the side or the top, and I end up keeping this panel off to the right-hand side. And I decided that the card needs a little bit something else. So I'm going to be attaching the Lawn Fawn Mistletoe Baker's Twine. And since this card doesn't have very many layers, all I've done is cut a slit up at the top of my card base. My card base, by the way, is the Neenah Desert Storm. I believe it's the 100-pound cardstock, and I do really like this for a craft cardstock. It's pretty sturdy, and it's starting to grow on me, surprisingly. So I'm feeding the Mistletoe Baker's Twine through twice, and then I'm going to be creating a bow along the side, and that takes up that little bit of empty space. It is exactly what the card needed along this side. And you'll see that I tie the bow kind of towards the middle, and then I decided that I don't really like it there. And all you have to do is slide it up. You take the back and the front of the twine and kind of, rotate it together to move it either up or down along the card. What I really like about the Lawn Fawn twine, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, is the twine it has like a coating on it, which I love because, number one, it keeps the twine from fraying when you cut it, or when you're trying to like feed it through. For example, when you're trying to feed it through this little itty bitty slit that I've created up at the top of the card, it doesn't really fray. And what I like is that it's stiff enough that if I need to adjust the bow, it stays put and the loops stay exactly where they're supposed to be, and they're not kind of like limp or not staying. So I really love the Lawn Fawn Baker's Twine, and I'm slowly starting to grow my collection, so I like that. Then I'm going to attach this panel with some of the Tombow Extreme Tape Runner. This is the first time I've ever used this stuff. I do love it, but as you can see, I am still learning how to use it accurately. But I will give you this one tip. When I attach this panel, the glue, the multi-medium matte glue, was still a little bit wet, and I did have a few sequins shift a little bit, especially along the tree, which was the last portion that I did. So definitely give yourself plenty of time to let that dry. Let it sit to the side. I am ridiculously impatient, could not wait. So I just had to fix a few sequins that had shifted a little bit while I was adhering it. So then I'm taking some more of the multi-medium glue that's on that. It's just a scrap piece of packaging along the side, because I didn't have my craft mat readily accessible, and I'm pretty much just dipping and dragging these die cuts in it so that the back would be coated with the glue, and I'm just attaching it along the right side of the card. I was thinking about putting it on the left side, but I felt like that and the ribbon was just too much and it was a little too busy. So I've put it along the right side, and then you'll see here in a minute that I attach the eye to Christmas with the quick stick tool, as well as I'm just dragging it through that same multimedia matte glue. I was going to do the 3 thickness of this, but it was becoming a little complicated and it just was taking too much time, so I just did 1. You really can't tell. And lastly, I'm going over the die cut with Wink of Stella clear glitter brush, and that's it. That completes my card for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this card. I had a lot of fun creating it. Check out the description below for items used on this project, and I will see you guys in the next video.